Good morning, everyone. My name is Esther Mannheimer. I'm mayor of the city of Asheville, and I'd like to welcome you to the June 5th, 2025 agenda briefing work session. All council members and staff are participating virtually. The meeting will be live streamed on the city's YouTube channel or through the city's virtual engagement hub, accessible through the front page of the city's website. You may listen to the meeting via phone at 855-925-2801. Meeting code 11531. We will not take public comment during this meeting. Council and staff, please unmute yourselves and say a quick hello when I call your name. Vice Mayor Antoinette Mosley.
Good morning.
Actually, Vice Mayor is maybe multitasking, and so I'm going to move on to Councilmember Sage Turner.
Good morning.
She's on, Mayor. Can you hear us?
Did it happen?
I think it's Esther.
Yeah, Mayor.
Okay, so it's not just me. Can you guys hear me? Yes, can you hear me? Yes. We cannot hear Sage.
You cannot hear
Sage. Let's try another person.
Sage.
Let's see if we can hear.
I don't think
Ronnie.
the mayor can hear us.
It's Mayor. Right. I had a whole conversation with her earlier and didn't
Say
realize.
a quick hello, Kim Roney.
She can't hear us.
Good morning. And Esther, you're the one who maybe can't hear us.
EM cannot hear you. What? Okay. Is it me? Can you guys all hear each other? Okay. All right. You can hear me, but I can't hear you. All right. So I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to log off and log back on and figure that out. Okay. Ready? Councilmember Maggie Ullman.
Hello.
Councilmember Bo Hess.
Good morning.
City Manager Deborah Campbell.
Good morning.
Assistant City Manager Ben Woody.
Good morning.
Assistant City Manager Jade Dundas.
Morning.
City Attorney Brad Branham.
Good morning.
And City Clerk Maggie Burleson.
Good morning.
Okay, I'm now going to turn it over to the City Manager, Deborah Campbell.
Thanks, Mayor. And again, good morning, everyone. As you know, the council agenda briefing meetings are designed to help you prepare for your upcoming business meetings. Your next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June 10th. As usual, the meeting will start at 5 p.m. and will be held in the council chamber located on the second floor of City Hall. However, let me also remind you that before your business meeting starts at 5, there will be a work session scheduled to start at 2:00 p.m. This will be a meeting of your proposed policy, finance, and infrastructure council committee. You'll get more details about the agenda for that meeting, our work session later in this meeting. Today's meeting will begin first with an overview and discussion of items scheduled for action or discussion at your business meeting. And as I said, on June 10th, Assistant City Manager Ben Woody will cover these items. Ben or Jade will then briefly review the agenda for the Policy, Finance, and Infrastructure Council work session. And then Ben will highlight future items from your 8-week agenda that is coming to council. There are several items listed under the other issues and updates section of this morning's agenda that include a budget update, which will be given by Tony McDowell, temporary water system and next steps, Clay Chandler, and then long-term recovery planning initiative, an Urban Land Institute advisory panel that will be given by Ben Woody, and I think we may have a planning staff as well. As you know, we are reaching what we hope will be the final milestone in this year's budget process. Action on the FY 25-26 budget is on your agenda at the June 10th meeting. And so I will now turn it over to Assistant City Manager Ben Woody to begin this meeting with the review of the June 10th business agenda. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Good morning, Mayor, members of council. Mayor, can you hear me? may still not be able to hear. So, okay, I'm going to move into the June 10th agenda. We have actually a relatively brief agenda, but we do have some important items. No proclamations on June 10th, and I'm going to start with the consent. I'm going to only cover 3 items today on consent, and of course, as always, we can stop for questions, or if there's an item you want to discuss, please just let me know. So I'm going to start with consent item B, and item B is a resolution approving changes to the Asheville rules on boards and commissions. These rules have been amended periodically throughout the years, so this isn't a new thing to update these rules. Your last update occurred in 2022. Some of the major revisions that we have before you, and again, the timing of this is because we're about to turn these advisory boards back on in the next fiscal year. So changes include revision of the qualifications section. When what that does, it allows non-city residents to be appointed to boards that are managed by the city, but it remains and continues to give preference to city residents. Recruitment for boards, or excuse me, requirement for boards to begin submitting annual work plans and kind of aligning their work with our fiscal year. In the past, it's been aligned with the calendar year, but we're trying to move the boards and their work to be more aligned with our typical process as staff and council. We're asking that all boards adopt rules and procedures as provided by the city attorney's office. That'll give us some consistency in rules across all the advisory boards. We are asking or clarifying some of the voting rules as it relates to unexcused absences and non-votes, making it clear by inclusion of the ethics policy within this document. So I think that makes everybody aware that they are subject to our ethics policy. And finally, removing the conflict of interest section because that is contained within our ethics policy. So a lot of cleanup to those rules, but also I think reflective of kind of where we're moving is restarting our boards and commissions. And Councilwoman Turner, you have a question.
Is there a markup version you could send to us?
Yes.
later? Thank you.
Great, yeah, and just want to thank the clerk's office and attorney's office for really working on these revisions. So I got to move on to item C. Item C authorizes the city manager to apply for the Right at Home grant on behalf of the COC. The COC is a continuum of care. This grant funded initiative aligns with the COC's draft strategic plan. And what it does is it will pilot a homeless prevention initiative based on providing forms of rental assistance. And so what this grant does is it gives us a 6 to 12 month planning phase, followed by a 3-year implementation period. And again, of course, this was recommended by the COC to move this grant forward. So we're excited about this opportunity. And then go ahead, Councilwoman Ullman.
What's the dollar amount of the grant being applied for? Roughly. Okay, I'm seeing you say don't know, but
I'm sorry, Councilman, didn't go off mute. I don't think we know that actual amount yet.
okay. So we're okay. Just curious.
And Ben, if I misspoke, please correct me.
I don't, but we will get clarifying information on that before your Tuesday meeting. So we'll have that to you as part of the follow-up document. Good question. Moving on, the last item I'm going to cover on consent is item J. Item J is an amendment to our contract, to the city's contract with Haggerty Consulting, who have been helping us since shortly after the storm with our recovery management and how we're working through that long and complicated process. The contract amendment will increase the contract by just over $6 million. Brings the contract to a total not to exceed amount of $12.8 million. It is expected that 90% of this expense for the contract services will be reimbursed through FEMA and DR funds. Some of the accomplishments that we've been able to move forward working with Haggerty Consulting to date include the development of the DR action plan and related policies, oversight of our storm-related debris efforts, technical assistance with federal programs such as FEMA public assistance, which our community is going to start to see those PA funds be leveraged and put to use as we begin our kind of rebuild from storm damage. Hagerty has also been a key partner in working with the city and federal and state agencies to maximize our access to direct financial reimbursement and grant support. So that concludes what I wanted to cover with consent. Any questions or any items we want to discuss before moving on? Okay, seeing none. Next, we do have a manager's report scheduled for June 10th, and we will have Walter Ear, our interim capital management director there, and he's going to give you your quarterly update on our CIP program. We have one public hearing. It's a pretty straightforward conditional zoning. What this will do, it'll allow the construction of a 19-unit multifamily building. The parcel is currently vacant. It's located at 215 Glen Bridge Road. It's about a half-acre parcel, so it's a very, very small parcel, actually. But what the CZ does, it proposes to increase the allowable density on the property from 8 units to 35 units per acre, which allows for the construction of the 19-unit multifamily building on the half-acre parcel. And for this request, both planning staff and Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval. We're making record time today. And then our unfinished business is the ordinance adopting the budget. I'm going to not cover that because we have Tony McDowell here today to talk more about that under other issues and items. Any final questions on your business agenda for June 10th? Okay, seeing none. No council committees are meeting that we need to discuss at this agenda briefing. However, we do have your policy, finance, and infrastructure meeting. Because that's the full council, that's really a work session. So that's why we've got it structured this way. And I'm going to turn it over to Assistant City Manager Jade Dundas to walk you through your agenda, your PFI agenda for June 10th.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, Jake Dundas, and interim assistant city manager. Yeah, as Ben said, we're conducting this as a work session and pretty straightforward agenda. We are going to go over an orientation to very similar to what's been done in the other committee meetings to explain, the purpose of the group work session, how we're going to conduct business, and then essentially like review potential future topics of this group. And then also another item on this agenda is the Fountain Works review of the organizational work plan. This is essentially a follow-up to the work that y'all did in your council retreat earlier this year. And so Fountain Works is coming in to provide some information on that and to work through how the information that you developed, the goals that you developed in your work session apply to the organizational work plan and the recovery efforts as we move forward, which will help inform the work plans for the council committees and then also the boards and commissions. So happy to answer any questions you might have on that. We are working through presentation materials for the orientation and for Fountain Works, which will be updated as soon as those are available.
Thank you, Jade. Well, I'm sorry, Councilman. Let me go ahead.
I'm trying to figure out how to put my hand up. I see on the PFI agenda that we're approving the minutes for Equity Engagement Committee and Policy, Finance, and HR, which tells me we're kind of like wrapping up loose ends for our previous council committees. Oh, I got it. Boards and commissions on there too. Question answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, as we transition into our new format for FY26. I'm going to keep moving, and we have our 8-week agenda next. I want to flag just a couple of items for you. We don't have a lot over the summer, and of course, we reduced the number of meetings in the summer. Under unfinished business, or excuse me, under new business, we have a couple of housing related requests. So we're kind of moving back to some of our steady state work in terms of housing trust fund loans and those types of city support subsidies for affordable housing development. So you can see 32 Grail Street and 319 Biltmore. Those, of course, will go through HCD before they get the full council, but just want to flag those as some of the normal kind of CED business that's beginning to return and hit the council agenda. The other thing that I want to flag, and right now it's showing under June, but it's going to push to your July meeting, but you'll see a resolution for a contract for the North Fork transmission line. And what that is, and we're going to talk a lot about water very shortly with Clay Chandler, but that's another example of where beginning the design work and trying to think through how do we get additional redundancy out at North Fork to make sure that our water lines are less vulnerable to storms and disruptions. So there'll be more about that in July, but just want to flag that you'll continue to see, amongst many things, the staff continuing to work through how do we create more redundancy around our water system. And again, Clay's going to have a lot of information on that today. Any other questions on the 8-week and what's coming ahead over the summer? Okay. I think I made record time. I might have beat Jade's meeting last time, at least through that part of the agenda. So I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Campbell to kind of kick off for other issues and go through those items. So again, thank you, Mayor and Council.
All right, thank you, Ben. So as I noted earlier, under the other issues and update, the first item is the budget update, and Tony McDowell and Lindsay Spangler is here to provide us with an update. We just wanted to go into a little bit more detail about the I guess the scope and the content of the budget. And we also understand that in terms of follow-up, you wanted us to look at some potential options for transitioning some AFD firefighters, potential firefighters, and included in this year's budget mid-year, and we will provide you all with some options for that. So with that, Tony, I will turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Deborah, and good morning, everybody, and thanks, Ben, for going in record time to give us plenty of time for this discussion. And I know we also have a couple other items coming up after this. So I'm going to run through the slides pretty quickly. We've got about 25 slides to go through this morning, and I think Ms. Campbell kind of touched on some of the key takeaways already, which is we're essentially at the end of the budget process this year. You all received public comment on the proposed fiscal year 25-26 budget at your last council meeting, and you're scheduled to take action on the budget at your meeting next Tuesday. Just as a reminder, the budget is balanced with a 3.26 cent property tax rate increase. And that increase is to allow us to continue to fund our current continuing operations. It's to allow for the employee compensation adjustments that we've discussed with y'all, and I'll show those again later in the presentation. And it allows us to maintain our 15% fund balance and our strong credit rating that comes along with that. So today we want to do a couple things with you all. We want to just kind of run through the highlights of the proposed budget once again, and then we want to spend a little bit of time, as requested, talking about some of the potential funding options that could allow for additional firefighters to be hired in January of 2026. So just to go through the highlights again, we're here at the end of the process. It's been an unusual and complicated budget process this year, unlike any that we've been through before. We really started talking to council back in February at your retreat. We provided some projections of where we were at this year financially in the follow-up to Helene and the impact that it's had on our budget. And then we've had multiple work sessions along the way to help develop the proposed budget that was presented to you all back on May 13th. And then again, here we are approaching June 10th, where we will do adoption of the budget, hopefully next Tuesday. And you know, this calendar really doesn't capture the full process because there's a lot of work that went into the budget prior to that February date by staff to kind of get us started and get us ready for the conversations that we've had with you all over the last few months. So I just wanted to acknowledge the work that has been done, not only by the budget and finance team, but also folks throughout the organization to get us to a balanced budget this year, because it has been a very, very challenging process this year. One of the things, speaking of those challenges, one of the things we wanted to do this year was identify some key themes to kind of keep us focused as we went through the process this year. And so I just want to kind of go through these quickly. Again, we've been through these with you all before, but I think as we look at the budget that was presented to you all on May 13th, I think we would say to staff anyway that we think that we have hit the target with these themes that we've identified and the things that we wanted to keep in mind as we went through the process this year. The first of which is we wanted to make sure we provided a budget that continued to provide funding for our core services in the wake of Helene. At the same time, we wanted to put forward a budget that minimized cost increases to residents and businesses as they recover from Helene. We wanted to also make sure that we looked to one-time revenue sources to help us fund the budget next year, as well as the community's recovery priorities. And I think that's kind of the leave no stone unturned bullet point that we've talked to you all about this time, or that we've gone through the process this year several times. And then finally, we wanted to make sure we put forward a budget that was developed in a fiscally responsible way that allowed the city to maintain its strong financial metrics and credit ratings. So just a quick summary of the budget. You all seen this slide before. It's about a $256 million total budget across all funds for the city, which is about a 2.1% increase compared to the current fiscal year. For our general fund, which is the largest operating or largest component of the budget, it's about a $2.9 million or 1.6% increase compared to the current budget. And I'll go through some more detail on the general fund and kind of touch bases on some of the highlights from the enterprise funds as well later in the presentation. So just as a reminder, again, of some of the things that we have done as we've gone through the budget process. Obviously, due to the financial constraints after Tropical Storm Helene, it's been very challenging. So we instructed departments early on in the process not to request any additional funding or any new positions as a part of the budget process. And you will see in the proposed budget that we presented, there are no new city-funded positions included. However, we did have some unavoidable cost increases that we had to include in the budget. And those included a number of things, but primarily healthcare and the state retirement cost increases to our budget.
And Tony, we need to clarify also, because there may be some additional positions recommended, but this is the manager's recommended budget. And then we may have some amendments pending this discussion.
Correct. Yeah, there are, as you all know, with the CDBG-DR grant and just the size of that money, we are going to have to add some grant-funded positions to help manage that program. But those will all be funded through the grants or through FEMA reimbursements. And so there are no new city-funded positions in the budget. But yeah, thanks for that clarification. And again, as you all know, we have done a lot to balance this year's budget. We implemented are going to implement about $5 million in budget reductions in the general fund to help close the gap between revenues and expenses. We utilized some fund balance in our street cut fund and also in the transit fund as well to help balance the general fund budget. And then finally, as you all know, we applied for and have received a $5 million loan through the FEMA Community Disaster Loan Program. And that can be used next year to help us fund general fund operations. And so again, that provides a one-time revenue source to help us balance the budget and minimize the property tax rate increase that we've proposed. So over the next couple slides, I'm going to show you all some examples of some of the ongoing investments in the budget in FY26. And we haven't shown you all this set of slides this year so far. We typically have in previous budgets kind of gone through some of what the ongoing and new investments are in the budget. Obviously, no new investments this year. And we've talked to you all a lot about kind of the internally focused parts of the budget with the compensation increases and everything. So one thing we wanted to do today and then also next week at adoption is just kind of run through, again, some of the things, some of the ongoing investments and ongoing funding that are still part of the budget for next year. And so we've grouped these next few slides to align with the priorities that you all identified coming out of your retreat. So under the council priority of people, we've listed out, again, some of the continued funding in next year's budget to help meet this objective. I won't read through all of these. I will highlight again, we have continued support for reparations in the proposed budget. We also have continued funding for the joint city-county property tax mitigation program that helps folks with their property tax bills. Funding for that is in the budget for next year. Here on the next slide, under economy, we wanted to just highlight a few things here, and I'll really just kind of focus on the last one there. There is funding within the budget and within the budget ordinance that you all will be adopting next week for the second year of the Downtown Business Improvement District, again, to help with local economy and the economic recovery from Helene. And won't go through all of these. Under infrastructure and environment, obviously a big component of our operations next year, and our focus will be the capital program, both of recovery as well as implementing the 80 million in GO bonds and beginning the spending of those. There's water system improvements, once again, that are funded through the Water Resources Enterprise Fund. The fee increase that you all approved earlier in the budget process back in April is going to be very important for us to allow us to continue those water system improvements. And then finally, I did want to highlight there under our CIP, one of the larger CIP projects that we're going to be engaging in next year, and that's beginning the replacement of the park maintenance facility that was destroyed as a part of Tropical Storm Helene. Under housing, again, a list of some of the things that are still included in the budget next year: funding for Code Purple and winter sheltering. I'd also wanted to just point to the last box there, the Housing Trust Fund. There's GO bond funding. We are not including any general fund funding next year, but that program will continue with the funding that's already in place through the GO bond, and also budgeting some revenue that was received in previous years through the public benefits table. So there will be additional resources going into that program next year, even with the reduction in general fund support. And then finally, I want to come back again to the compensation adjustments. You all have seen these again, but just as a reminder to everyone, the budget does include a 3% increase for all employees who are on the general pay plan. If you're above $58,000 a year, which is the median pay here at the city, if you're below that amount, you will get a $1,740 flat rate increase. That will allow us to increase the pay for some of our lower paid staff at a slightly higher rate than that 3%. On the police pay plan, funding is included for some compression adjustments that are going to allow them to move away from the step pay plan that has been in place for a number of years. And most police staff will receive those compression adjustments. There's a small number of officers who will get a one-time amount equivalent to 3% if they don't get the compression adjustments. And then on the fire pay plan, everyone on the fire pay plan would get a 3% increase next year. We did just want to note for comparison purposes what those increases looked like for the fiscal year that we're in right now. So during last year's budget process, we just wanted to highlight again that the increases in the fire department, which averaged out to be about 8.8% for some of the lowest paid firefighters. For the police pay plan, it was 6% in the prior year. And then you can see the amount that was included for general pay or general employees as well from last year. And we want to include that because I know there was one comment, I think at the public hearing last week about pay increases from the current year. And so we just wanted to provide this as kind of a note to clarify some of the remarks that were made at that meeting. Additionally, in terms of compensation adjustments, and we're going to talk more about the fire department fourth shift here in just a few slides, We do have 205,000 included in the proposed budget, which will allow for firefighter promotions, which will put in place the supervisory structure to allow for a fourth shift. Again, as you all know, the goal with the fourth shift is to eventually reduce the number of hours that firefighters are working down to 42 hours a week from the current 56. The proposed budget that the manager put forward back in May did not include recommending adding any new firefighters. And it does assume that future councils and staff can then determine the pace of implementation based on available resources. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of those options if council does want to add firefighters in just a couple slides. So where did that kind of leave us in terms of a tax rate increase? And as I mentioned on the first slide, the proposed budget does include a 3.26 cent tax rate increase that will allow us to continue existing operations, fund the compensation options for regular employees, for folks on the APD pay plan, AFD, and as well as the AFD fourth shift promotions. And finally, it will allow us to maintain a fund balance at 15%, which is the city's policy target. And that would result in a increase of about $114 a year or $9.51 per month for the average homeowner in Asheville. So just to kind of wrap up this section of the presentation, again, just kind of a quick summary of enterprise funds as well. Like I mentioned, council approved water rate increases back in April, which will allow us to bring in about $2.4 million in additional revenue into that fund, which will allow for continued maintenance of the water system. We have lowered the budget in our parking fund for next year, partly based on trends that we're seeing in the current year in terms of collections. And then we're going to reevaluate that kind of mid-year to see if collections improve, which would allow us then to perhaps budget some additional capital dollars in the parking fund. And just as a reminder, we did appropriate about $900,000 in the transit fund to cover their increasing operating costs. And that also allowed us to keep the general fund contribution to transit flat next year as well. And then actually, I forgot we had one more slide on budget, and it's about our CIP. I just wanted to quickly touch bases on that. Again, this is our proposed general fund CIP. So this is what we often refer to as our regular CIP. This is the 5-year plan. You all will be adopting in your budget ordinance funding for that first year of projects, which includes about $26.55 million in projects. And again, that is in addition to the roughly $80 million or the $80 million in GeoBond projects that are approved and will be getting underway, and also in addition to the recovery projects that will be going on as well. So with that, I'm going to transition kind of from that section of the budget, which was really all the things that are included in the manager's proposed budget. And to finish off, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the funding options for additional firefighters, and then I'll pause and let council discuss or ask any questions you may have about the proposed budget. So we have two proposals we wanted to share with you all this morning, a proposal A and a proposal B. And under both these proposals, it would allow for the addition of 3 firefighter trainees next year as a part of the January 2026 training class. So they would come on board halfway through next fiscal year. So the funding for the 3 trainees would be for half year's cost for both salary and equipment. And that would be about $155,000 in next year's budget. Obviously, once they're on board and are promoted to firefighters after training, the cost goes up a little bit to about $248,000 annually moving forward after that. So we had 2 strategies we wanted to put together, 2 proposals we wanted to share with council for you all's consideration to fund the cost next year of $155,000. One is to reduce the sustainability budget by that amount. And obviously we have here in the strategy, obviously if we get additional revenue after the budget, we could consider restoring those cuts. But again, the proposal would be to fund those firefighters with a reduction to the sustainability budget. So pros and cons of that, obviously the pros is it would allow council to further demonstrate its commitment to the AFD fourth shift, but by beginning to add firefighters next fiscal year as opposed to waiting to fiscal year 27. Also, one possibility is that CDBG-DR funding might be available to offset some of the sustainability reductions. If those dollars are not available though, and this is really the con, is that sustainability would be unable to advance some of their current work that is supporting community member energy efficiency and resiliency building, which again will ultimately lead to potential delays in the organization being able to meet its sustainability goals. So again, proposal A would be to reduce the sustainability budget to fund the firefighters at $155,000. Proposal B that we'll look at here, again, same proposal, same costs, different funding strategy. And this strategy would be to utilize general fund balance to fund the first year cost of $155,000. The pros and cons of this approach, again, the pro is the same as the previous proposal. On the con side, what this could potentially mean is that it would lower the city's unassigned fund balance to slightly below 15% policy target. Our current estimates would peg that at around 14.9%. So it's not significantly lower than the 15% policy target, but it could potentially lower us slightly under that. And then obviously the second con is that, fund balance is a one-time revenue source. So if additional revenue does not become available next year, or if fund balance estimates are not better than projected, then this might become part of the property tax increase, or other budget reductions might have to be considered in future years to fund this cost. So I think with that, that kind of wraps up my slideshow presentation. I guess so for the discussion here, we wanted to put forth to council which option, if either, would you all like to pursue to fund the 3 firefighters in FY26? And I think my final slide again is just a repeat of the key takeaways. So I'll stop there. I don't know, Ms. Campbell, if you have anything you wanted to add, or maybe if we can just turn it back over to you for council discussion.
No, I think we'll allow council to discuss and we will take direction.
Can you guys hear me now? Is that working? All right, great. Tony, I guess you can take down, unless someone wants to look at more of the slides. So, I mean, obviously there's other cuts to be able to be considered other than sustainability. I think the idea of taking a look at sustainability was with the thought that maybe there was a way to use CDBG-DR funds for those to replace those funds, but that is not apparently a possibility with the types of things the funding's earmarked for. So thank you, staff, for going through that exercise. I personally don't want to see those funds cut from sustainability. I do want to see us move ahead with the 3 firefighters, and I think a majority of council would like to do that. So council, are you, I'm the first to hammer away constantly on the 15% policy for our fund balance. And of course, I'd like to land there, but I do think you've done tremendous work this budgeting season to try to get this budget in as good a shape as we can. And I think I'd like to say big thanks to staff for chasing down every possibility, machination we ever dreamed up, and landing in a good place. So, and knowing that we're going to be dealing with a property tax reval next year and having to adjust the property tax rate again and dealing with the funding the bonds, among other things, I think I'm good with landing at a projected 14.9% fund balance, assuming Tony tells me this is not going to disrupt our AAA bond rating in this immediate fiscal year?
No, it should not.
And I think, Mayor, because we are actually replenishing that fund balance, I think that helps. That demonstrates that we are serious about consistency with this policy.
Council, staff will need some direction from you in order to bring this forward for our meeting on Tuesday night. If you want to do thumbs up emojis, which I know you like a lot, or thumbs down emojis, or speak up, please let us know your thoughts. Hey, Bo, go
Mayor-
ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Bo. go
Sorry.
ahead.
Hey, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, Deborah. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor Tiffany. First of all, thank you so much this budget season. This was my first budget season, and you guys were more than patient with all the questions and all the ideas. And so I cannot thank you enough. Your expertise and guidance through this was really helpful. I also really have to shout out Vice Mayor Mosley and Councilmember Turner and the mayor for really coming to the table and helping get these firefighter positions through. Very proud. So I would like to see us move forward with that 14.9% fund balance, given it doesn't affect our AAA rating. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Sage.
I also want to echo my appreciations. I know how to say it in the work sessions and stuff, but this has been a really challenging budget year. Bo, welcome to budgeting. That was one of the hardest ones we've done. But I really appreciate that we started early, that you gave us a longer timeline with more meetings, and that we were able to get information with plenty of time. It's just been really much better, as stressful as it was. It was implemented well. So thank you. And I do support this. I'm thrilled to get some of the firefighter positions in place. I think spring and 3 new positions is a great first step forward. So thank you. I do support.
This is Kim. I do support option B, as the mayor noted in our personal conversations, being within the margin of error for fund balance. So I can support that. I do have some other questions about the budget though. One, since the budget hearing, I really appreciate that community members are asking questions about the numbers on the slides. One of the questions I'm hearing is that it appears there's missing information on the slides about the APD pay plan. Can staff confirm what a typical pay increase amounts to for staff that are coming off the pay plan? There's a lot of percentages flying around, and some across the board increases. So I think that percentage would help to add to the understanding.
Yes, Councilmember Rooney, I can answer that question. And I believe the information is in one of the feedback memos that we sent you at some point. So it is in writing somewhere, but I believe for the folks on the APD pay plan who are receiving a compression adjustment, the average is about 6.5% increase.
Thank you. I think it helps to have that in a public facing conversation. Since we're back to comparing staff departments by salaries, I do feel obligated for the public record to note that the fire department is scheduled 56-hour work weeks, so 832 hours more than any department that's scheduled for 40-hour work weeks. I think we may misrepresent our organization if we just compare apples and oranges instead of the weight of the fruit. I want to acknowledge that we're all working really hard to mitigate the impact of property taxes after a devastating storm. I appreciate that we're wrestling with this year's challenges, the revenue loss, and that we're tackling it with care and creativity. I've seen a lot of creativity this year, and I know it's meant a lot of hours for staff literally bending over backwards. So thank you for that. I'm also wanting to acknowledge my lack of due diligence in a careful enough review of the general fund. After we received new information last week, it's really difficult for me to trust that we're talking about real numbers today. So slides 2 and 17 say that the proposed budget is balanced within our general fund goals with a 3.2-cent tax increase. But since we learned after the budget hearing that a significant detail of this budget is based on a settlement that was just finalized, can council please get an updated detailed list of the revenue streams as they currently stand, as well as separate sales tax revenue projections through October, and some sort of outline about what's been happening in the general fund over the past maybe couple of years. I think that would help me understand sort of like the gray area of fund balance. We kind of talk about it like it's our savings account, but even in our own businesses and workplaces and personal lives, we should maybe know a little bit more about what our savings account looks like. And I don't know if anybody else is interested in that information, but I surely am.
I feel like we see that because we get that historic chart, but maybe I'm not totally understanding. You mean like what comes in and out of it? What's a traditional thing we might use it for? Or what have we used it for in the past? And
something.
Yeah, I feel like Lindsay, I mean, I'll let you all speak. I feel like I've seen it.
Yeah, go ahead, Deborah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, we definitely show, fund balance history. I think the 10-year slide to show kind of where we've been, kind of between 15 and 20%. And like the detailed information around revenues and fund balance is also in our annual comprehensive financial report. All that information is out on the internet as well. One thing we could do, just as a suggestion, is we could schedule what I would call like a deep dive maybe into fund balance as a part of the new policy, finance and infrastructure committee, because it is complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, and I would love to be able to share with you all some more of the details about what goes into that calculation, because it's not easy. And we usually have to rely on waiting till the end of October until we finally closed a fiscal year to kind of know where we're at. And I'd love to be able to share more information about how that process works.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. And then could we get some information on when the closed session minutes from last Tuesday would become part of the public record, since it's impacting our property tax this year?
I think we need a little bit more clarification in terms of how it's impacting our property tax.
Well, I'm trying to think about how I can say this, and Brad, please step in if you feel like I need some support here. But
Deborah, I think we talked about the fact that any subtraction in our current fund balance results in a need to increase property taxes more next year, right? Just that basic principle.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So as a basic principle, it would help to know, because now there's like a community conversation outside of City Hall about what happened in our closed session. It would help me to know when closed session meetings like that, the minutes can become public. I thought it was normally when an item was finalized or settled.
I'd have to defer to Brad.
You had mentioned that before. I'm not aware of a community conversation about our closed session. Are you? Have you made Brad aware of it? Because I am not aware of that.
I emailed you and Brad and Deborah about it, that I was hearing from another person in City Hall, a conversation that's happening outside of the community. And that's why I emailed the mayor, the city attorney's office, and the general manager about it. I know we're having this conversation.
I checked. Yeah, after you had emailed that, I checked in with Brad, and he didn't know anything. I will say, I think there's a public conversation happening around the concept of franchise agreements, which is not part of any confidential issue, and that is anybody can go have that conversation if they want to. Maybe that's what you're talking about.
It's not. I still have the same question is when we have a closed session and the items become finalized, when do those closed session minutes become publicly available?
Mayor, I think Maggie has her hand up.
Well, if Brad wants to speak to that one, because it's going to vary, right, Brad? And you're going to tell us about it.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I want to talk about the budget question from earlier. So when this is resolved, I can move in.
All right. Thank you for the question. The short answer is that, as the mayor just said, the timeline for the minutes of closed sessions to become a public record varies based upon the circumstances. Generally speaking, the rule is when production of such minutes would no longer frustrate the process of the confidential session. In this particular instance, closed session was conducted by council following your last meeting to finalize a settlement agreement that has been done. All of the terms have been fully satisfied at this point, so I would consider those public record immediately if requested.
Thank you.
I could jump in with the earlier question. As far as to move forward with the additional firefighter positions, if we would pull from sustainability or within the margin of error of fund balance, I would go with the latter. I mean, we just experienced the largest climate disaster that we've ever had. I can't fathom why we would reduce our capacity in our sustainability department. I think, and then also to your point, Deborah, that we're showing significant due diligence, effort, and confidence towards believing in that policy by taking the steps we are in this fund balance, that if it's within that margin of error, I think that's a good way to go forward. And, you know, in the past, as we've had multiple work sessions on this topic, I've brought up the inquiry of, at this time, with so much of our community really struggling, is now the time to start a long-term plan to expand staffing in the fire department. I still have questions, and to take sincere steps to such a systemic change, would there ever be a good time? You know, when you're really making big system moving efforts in the pay structure for our fire department, there probably won't ever be a good time. And so I think that now, in the wake of the service that we saw from our fire department in Helene, feels like, in a financial sense, if there's never a perfect time, now is a good time to really look those firefighters in the eye with gratitude and say, like, we want to do better. We want to make this a better system for you. So.
Okay, anyone else want to chime in before we close out this matter? We're going to be voting on the budget Tuesday night.
And Mayor, we will have this as a adjustment to the budget when we review the budget on Tuesday. And we ask for your indulgence and your patience. We will have a brief presentation. A lot of the information that you saw today will be a part of that presentation, in addition to this adjustment. And we'll have that as a key takeaway.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else on this subject matter? And again, we deeply appreciate the budget and finance staff. They have been amazing this year under all the challenges that we had in developing a budget. And as Tony has said on numerous occasions, turning over every rock, every cushion, anywhere we could look, and the other departments who were very, very patient and understanding, and just appreciate the effort and you all's effort through the numerous work sessions. So we hope we will have a vote on Tuesday. And now we can go to the second agenda item, which Clay is going to start. I don't know, David, if there's anything that you would like to do in terms of an introduction. This is really just for information. We want to keep council as up to date and informed and abreast of all the moving parts, particularly related to the things that and the challenges that we have with infrastructure and particularly with our water system. So, David, I don't know if there's anything you want to add or just turn it over to Clay.
We can just turn it over to Clay, then we'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, David. All right, Clay.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell, Mayor, Council. Good to be here this morning. I think this is the first time I have formally presented to all of you. So obviously this is a major career milestone for me. Going to briefly walk you through several slides that kind of show you where we've been, where we are, and maybe where we're going as it relates to the pre-treatment systems we have at North Fork and DeBrule water treatment plants. I think most, if not all of you, have been out to North Fork to see the DAF units in operation.
Excuse me, Clay, can you get this in presentation? It seems like it isn't.
Can everybody see
in the slideshow?
Oh, here we go.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
I think everybody, most if not all of you, have been to North Fork to see the DAF units in action. It's a pretty sophisticated operation, kind of one in that category. Most systems like this are much smaller than the ones that are at North Fork, and so we're kind of out here by ourselves as far as the size of this treatment system go. So, a couple of key takeaways. After Helene, the United States Army Corps of Engineers installed temporary pre-treatment systems to reduce turbidity in the reservoirs at both North Fork and DeBrule water treatment facilities. These temporary systems provide a critical layer of resilience at both of the treatment facilities. Due to the impacts of Helene, the watershed and reservoirs are still extremely vulnerable to any even moderate to severe weather events. It will not take another event like Helene to sort of put us at risk. It something much less severe than that could have sort of the same impact. And so obviously this creates an urgent need for these temporary systems to remain in place until a permanent treatment solution is designed and built. City leadership has thoroughly and repeatedly communicated that need to our state and federal partners. So far, no decision on future funding for the DAF units has been communicated to Water Resources. Rough timeline, September 27th, everybody remembers that. October the 1st, that's when the design process for the DAF units started. They started operation at North Fork in early December of last year. And I think they started operation at DeBrule and Beatree late March, maybe early April. I think I have that right. Early May is when the original lease was supposed to end. That was extended for 90 days. And so the lease termination is now set for early August. I mentioned watershed vulnerability. We do have some data to back that up. Schnabel PC South Engineering recently completed an analysis of the watershed at both DeBrule and North Fork to assess tree loss from Helene. That information was gathered using aerial photography and GIS analysis. A couple of the key findings were that North Fork experienced about a 15% canopy loss in the watershed. The practical effect of that will be within the first year after Helene, the watershed is projected to experience a 20 times increase in sediment entering the reservoir. That number drops to 4 times the amount of sediment in the second year after Helene, but that assumes that we don't have anything else that adds more debris to the watershed. So if everything this hurricane season goes perfectly fine, that number will drop to 4. If it does not go perfectly fine, it will not drop to 4. It will be higher than that. DeBrule experienced a 35% canopy loss. The valley that DeBrule sits at the bottom of is a lot steeper than the one at North Fork, so landslides were a big issue there. Any of you who have been out to North Fork or were out, Beatree, DeBrule and Beatree after the storm. Landslides were very, very obvious. The amount of sediment, sand, silt, clay, and like storm debris in the Beatree Reservoir was much, much greater than it was out at North Fork. Everybody remembers North Fork's turbidity being in the neighborhood of 90 immediately after Helene, as opposed to the 0.5 to 0.1 that it normally is. At Beatree and some deeper parts of the reservoir, the turbidity reached almost 500. So that's an astronomical jump. With that much canopy loss at DeBrule within the first year after Helene, the watershed is projected to experience a 50 times increase in sediment entering the reservoir. That number drops to 9 in the second year, again, assuming we don't have anything else, any other weather event that adds additional debris into the watershed. Vulnerability continued. If we do have to shut down existing systems to prevent filter damage because of a sudden spike in turbidity, the DAF units at both North Fork and DeBrule would have to meet 100% of customer water demand. If those pre-treatment systems are not available, 80% of the water system, or basically everything north of the Blue Ridge Parkway, will begin to lose service. Within 24 hours, North Fork would be able to send highly chlorinated raw water into the system, necessitating a boil water notice, and that's pretty much the same process that we went through last fall after we got the bypass connected and the distribution system sort of halfway put back together, especially in the Swannanoa area. Everybody remembers the raw lake water, smelled like chlorine, didn't look great, but served two very, very important functions as far as basic sanitation and fire protection. So next steps, we should post an RFP today to take over the management of the DAF units at both North Fork and DeBrule. Again, Corps of Engineers, their responsibility ends as far as the operation of those systems in early August. City staff will continue to work with FEMA and the states to support the transition of this process. City staff will also continue to work with FEMA and the state on solutions to design and build a permanent pre-treatment system at North Fork and DeBrule. And both of those projects, permanent and temporary pre-treatment systems, have been submitted to FEMA requesting funding under PA and are currently being reviewed by that agency. That's all I have. Happy to take any questions that may come up. Councilmember Rennie.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. That was very informative, and I look forward to hearing hopefully good news on approval of a permanent solution.
Thank you. So do we.
I just want to share that this storm has been so hard for so many, and that I was able to go to the tour that we were all invited to last Friday with the press and the state environment secretary. And it was just so hopeful. It just felt so good to see the progress. I mean, each of us have gone out to that reservoir when it was chocolate milk, and to like physically see what the progress of like our systems healing themselves, the massive special engineering that was done to make this happen. It's important to pause for those moments of progress. And so just a lot of gratitude. And I know the complexity of what you're working through with FEMA and the Army Corps is not simple. So just appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you. Let's see.
I echo all of those things, but I also just want to say, Clay, it's really nice to hear your voice. I will say it maybe mildly triggered me a little bit and sent me back,
yeah.
But I mean, it all came flooding back, but it's wonderful to see and hear you again. And I hope that you're well, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We just wanted to keep you all abreast, up to speed on where we are. David, anything?
No, good afternoon, everyone. I really don't have anything to add to that. We are diligently working, one, to hold on to these pretreatment systems. We're utterly excited with the progress with the reservoir, but we're also very cautious. We had a 2-inch rain a couple of weeks ago that doubled our turbidity. So the fragility of what we're dealing with is serious. And that's one thing we wanted to communicate to this council. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, so our last item is related to our long-term recovery plan and an exciting opportunity for the community. And I think, Ben, you're going to do this one.
I am, and I've got Steph Munson-Dahl, our planning director here, and I'm going to probably move any questions over to her. But this is a Urban Land Institute. I think most of council, or probably all of council, is familiar with the ULI. What's called a technical assistance panel, and this is, we'll talk about what this is, but what's really exciting about this is how it syncs up with our overall long-term recovery planning, which is an effort that we have partnered or partnering with the county and the other jurisdictions of Buncombe County to work through together. So we are engaging with the ULI to perform a technical assistance panel, and the purpose of that is to help us better navigate the economic and environmental challenges that we face for our recovery. Technical assistant panels are a great way to bring in professionals. These are panelists from across the country that are experts in their fields, and they're able to come in and take a look at our situation, assess that. We'll have engagement opportunities, and they'll provide us a set of recommendations and a document that hopefully guides us into the future journey of recovery. And again, it's going to help us short term in our recovery initiative, but it's also going to, I think, create a great foundation for some of the future policy considerations and decisions this body is going to have to make. If most of you remember, a lot of you were part of this, we actually used a ULI panel several years ago. What that resulted in was the hotel overlay and community benefits table that we now have in place. So clearly these panels yield in actionable, good results for a community. So in this particular instance, and again, this is going to really focus on our river corridors, but it'll be a little broader than that in some sense. But the Charlotte UL chapter is sponsoring this panel, and that's really important because these are typically not free. You've got to bring people here, and there's a call. So again, I want to thank you, Ms. Campbell, for you were very active in that ULI group and probably still are to some extent. So I think we were able to have some conversations. They wanted to help. So this is what we're bringing to the community as a result of that. So again, very appreciative of ULI and Charlotte for sponsoring this panel. Panel membership is going to include national experts in disaster recovery funding, urban design and land use, infill development, climate change, and hazard resilience. So we've got a good group of panel members. They're going to be in Asheville for about a week to work on this. The scope's still developing. It's going to get more clear as we work on this. And again, planning and CED, our departments have spent a lot of energy on this so far, working with ULI. But the idea is that this panel's work will focus on promoting economic mobility, the adaptability of our workforce, and diversification of our area businesses, taking a look at revitalizing flooded commercial corridors within the context of environmental resilience, and then leveraging city tools and resources to support our future disaster planning and resiliency efforts. And what this is going to kind of look like is we've got an interdepartmental group of staff that's working directly with the ULI. So that's principally Steph Dahl and PUD along with CED, and CMOs providing support. And it's sponsored by the Charlotte ULI chapter, but we're actually working with the National ULI Advisory Service. So this is the bigger umbrella group that we're working with directly. One of the things that we have to do is provide them with a briefing book or a tremendous amount of data in advance of their trip here, and they'll use that to be informed and hopefully kind of understand our situation when they show up for this panel. The panel usually lasts a week, and so it's going to be Sunday, July 7th through Friday, August 1st. And we'll have more information about this as we move closer to the week. And what that looks like is during the course of the week, they'll have a chance to spend time in Asheville to understand our area beyond the briefing book information they receive. There'll be multiple public engagement events. There'll be opportunities for our community, for you, City Council, for stakeholders to have access to this group, to make sure they understand the situation that we are in. That culminates on a Friday, August 1st, public presentation from the panel. That's probably going to need to be at Harris Cherokee Center because I would expect it would have pretty significant attendance, I imagine. And then in that presentation, they'll kind of, unveil their process and their strategies and their recommendations that we should consider as we move forward as a community. And what's really great, and there's some good examples of this you can find, is once that's done, they'll put those recommendations and their process into a document that they will then deliver to us, that will have a kind of a hard copy, digital copy of this work that we can use as we move into the future. Back to the key takeaways. I want to pause a second and give Steph a chance to add anything, or Deborah, that I may have missed, and then we can take any questions or comments council has.
I wanted to go back to the fact that the ULI chapter in Charlotte actually reached out and said, Deborah, how can we help? And they have this, as we know, this useful tool of having these assistance panels where they bring in experts from across the country. And what we have heard is that this was one of the easiest recruitments that they have had for an advisory panel. So we know that the entire coalition of ULI members have Asheville on their mind and want to help. And I just wanted to say thank you to Teresa Burnett, who is the chapter president, for reaching out and providing us with this opportunity. Very much appreciated. Steph?
Thanks, Deborah. I will add that I've been impressed with the ULI's commitment to being inclusive in this engagement process, and really letting us know the breadth and depth of people that they need to speak to in order for this to be an authentic activity that coming week. So that's been really heartening. And the second thing I'll say is that the list of experts that are joining us it's awesome. They're incredible people who have so much work that is relevant to us.
And that concludes my presentation on this topic. And if there are no questions on the ULI item, I will turn it back over to Deborah. Close us out.
All righty. Any questions? All right, you all will be hearing much more about this process as we finalize the plans. And again, we appreciate your time today. Mayor, if there's nothing else, this meeting will stand adjourned. All right. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.